California Senator and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris is introducing a bill to federally decriminalize marijuana. The bill is called the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. It would remove marijuana from the list of federally controlled substances and apply retroactively to past and pending convictions. Federal courts would also be required to expunge prior convictions. The bill would authorize a 5% sales tax on marijuana products to create a so-called Opportunity Trust Fund. The proposal is likely to face an uphill battle through the Republican-controlled Senate. Stephanie Ramirez joins me now. She's a CBS News campaign reporter covering Senator Harris. Okay, so I'm a little confused here. This bill would decriminalize marijuana at the federal level, but not legalize it. What's the difference?
So, Reena, first, thank you for having me. With the bill, it's not like she's saying go light up. Right? What the understanding is that she's removing the federal bar so that states can more freely choose to legalize marijuana if they wanted to. And then you saw some of the other things the bill addresses, like resentencing and expunging records. That's to address those communities disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. And then some of it, which you also showed, calls for revenue to help those communities with a tax as well.
And so the money that's generated from the 5% sales tax, where would that go?
So it's called the Opportunity Trust Fund, and that would have 3 grant programs. And the goal here is to help those communities by different things, including job training, reentry programs, literacy programs, people that have been impacted by incarceration because of marijuana specifically. And then they also want to assist those small business owners in the industry who have been identified, and she uses this word specifically, as socially and economically disadvantaged individuals.
You know, when you go back and you look at Senator Harris's record, back in 2010, when she was DA in San Francisco, she opposed a ballot initiative that would legalize recreational marijuana in California. I'm curious, Stephanie, what changed? So,
there's a lot of things in that. We may want to talk to the senator personally, but I can tell you it is a reversal from her stance as DA, because Proposition 19, that would have allowed legalized actually the recreational use of marijuana in the state of California. More recently, though, her stance has began to change actually. And then we saw when she, made her run for president, she came out for the legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes. But before that, especially in 2010, her campaign manager at the time had quoted her as saying that she only supports medicinal marijuana and nothing beyond that. And she herself has also said that on the trail as well. Back then.
You know, when you have someone like a politician who has a record like this is what people can sort of come back and point to different things. But, when you look at her time as a prosecutor, what were other points in her record that kind of go against what she's currently putting forward?
There are a lot of points, actually, and it's a lot to go through. Actually, the Rolling Stone came out with an article on this today. But this is what she is facing because of her time as district attorney, her time as California's top cop, attorney general. And she herself more recently began to say on the campaign trail that she is not going to apologize for her record. But we are seeing that come out, and that's what she's going to face with her history and now running for the presidency.
I want to talk about her position of Medicare for all. The first debate last month, she sort of raised her hand, about talking about eliminating private insurance and then later backtrack on it. What is her campaign saying about what her position is right now?
So I wrote a story on this that actually goes through in detail what she was saying along different ways. But that point that you just made, that was the second time that she had sparked some confusion on her stance with healthcare and Medicare for all. So we can tell you Harris is a supporter of, and co-sponsor actually, of Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all bill. Now, Sanders' bill would eliminate almost all forms of private insurance, although it would also allow for supplemental private insurance for things like cosmetic surgery. It also calls for a middle tax class hike, among other ways to fund it. But Sanders argues that middle class tax hike would save families in the long run. Now, Harris supports this bill, but more recently came out separating herself from it, saying that in the vision she sees, there would not be a middle class tax hike. And she said this on CNN last week. CNN, the correspondent, they're pressing her on how she would pay for this. This actually sparked even more questions on her stance for this. So I can tell you, with her rival set to be on the debate stage with her in Detroit, that's former Vice President Joe Biden. He is calling for the Affordable Care Act and not Medicare for all. He wants to fix and expand. And so that's something that we're expecting and anticipating them battle on when they hit the debate stage next week.
Yeah, speaking of debate stage, our latest CBS News battleground tracker over the weekend placed her in third in the early primary and caucus states, only behind Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. In California, we actually have her within the margin of error behind Joe Biden. How is her campaign dealing with this polling boost that she's seen recently? What are they saying?
Well, actually, it's interesting because another part of that battleground tracker showed her leading the poll when they were asked about most strong, who voters thought was most strong. The campaign, obviously, they're very excited about this. Our colleagues based in Iowa and based in New Hampshire have been seeing huge crowds, overflow crowds going to see her event. But one interesting thing that our New Hampshire campaign reporter, Nicole Skanga, had pointed out to me was that one of the more recent New Hampshire events, she was hearing rumblings of voters a little uneasy with Harris on health care because she's had to explain so much. And she actually got a few voters on record talking about this. So again, something we're definitely going to be paying attention to next week when she and Biden especially face off on the debate stage.
All right, Stephanie Ramirez, one of our CBS News campaign reporters, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.